Hey everybody, I'm Karyn Bryant. Welcome to the MMA Heat podcast.
What's up, guys? Jouban here as well.
So listen, the MMA Heat podcast, we took the week off last week because my little munchkin was on spring break, and we kind of hit the road and everything. And now, Alan, you are on vacation as well.
We've been taking some time off.
I know,
Karyn. I'm sorry to our regular viewers.
Yeah.
We getting a little lazy on the job, but we need a little refreshment. We need to come back refreshed and have some energy to bring you guys. So yeah, Karyn took her break. I'm back home in Louisiana. I come back home tomorrow, so I'll be back in LA tomorrow. But it's been a great trip. I came home for a family reunion, got to see almost all of my family in one stop, and I visited like longtime grandparents and cousins and friends. So it was a really good trip back home. I'm eager to get back home though and get back into training, get into my normal routine.
Well, I'm wondering, thank you, did they give you a like a parade? Because you're kind of a big deal now. I mean, I know there's DC and Dustin Poirier too, but you're kind of a big deal.
That's funny, man. I mean, it wasn't a parade. I don't get a parade. I got a key to the city. No big deal.
No big deal.
That would be amazing. A parade or a key to the city to Lafayette. I'd be honored. No, nothing like that. But I did receive a pretty warm welcome from everyone that I know. So it's been one of those. Earlier this year I traveled to Thailand where my wife is from. We got to see her family. It was a beautiful trip, but it was more beautiful from Instagram. Everybody saw our pictures and they said, wow, you guys had an amazing time. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? When we were in beautiful places, I took beautiful pictures. Right. But after that vacation, I kind of needed another vacation because you travel with a 3-year-old or 4-year-old to Thailand. It takes a lot out of you. It's a lot of travel. It's a lot of different things. Coming home to Louisiana, this has been a real vacation, where we just feel like rested and had a good, enjoyable time. So it was worth it. It was a great trip. Coming back to LA, happy for sure.
Nice, and I'm glad you avoided those twisters.
Oh my goodness, I was on the road. Yeah, Louisiana had a bad thunderstorm with tornadoes, and we were avoiding them on the freeway the whole time. It was pretty nuts, but yeah, we were good.
That's really scary. Yeah, well, we were just on spring break last week. So went to San Francisco and went to visit some friends of ours. So that was great. But I do want to make sure everybody knows that next week, we'll be back in person and everything. So so it'll be good. It'll be good.
We'll be back on track.
Absolutely. And so right now we just kind of wanted to do something this week because it's kind of a big deal fight this weekend at UFC 210. But first, maybe we should talk about, there was a couple of fights that got announced, and especially one that's in your division. Well, a couple of them actually. Robbie Lawler versus Cowboy Cerrone. So I'm curious what your take is on this one. I know you're a fan of both these guys, and you wanted to fight Cowboy, and you almost had the chance at 205.
Yeah, this is interesting, man. Exciting fight for the fight fans, obviously. And probably a big fight for both of these guys as well. If I'm thinking back correctly, both guys are coming off of a pretty big loss, right?
Yeah. Both Cowboy lost to Masvidal, and obviously Robbie hasn't fought since Tyron got the title.
Right, so Robbie's coming off his last loss. He was knocked out by Tyron, lost the title, took a lot of time off. I'm sure just emotionally, being the champion, you always have a target on your back. People always want to fight you. It's a lot of pressure. You used to hear Ronda Rousey speak about it, how people think they want to be champion, but they don't realize all the things that come with it. And I totally understand that. Once you get there, you have a lot of obligations. You have just in the gym on a daily basis. For instance, being in the UFC myself, and I train with a lot of guys who aren't in the UFC, I feel like I always have to kind of stand my ground. I need to show them, look, I'm at another level. I don't try to bully guys, but I need to not show them. It's hard to have an off day when you're held at a higher standard. When you're the champion in the UFC, as Robbie was, it's a lot to hold that day in and day out in training, and especially in fights. He lost a fight. It was a pretty in brutal fashion. He took some much-needed time off. I think that's what he needed to do to kind of reinvigorate himself if he wants to come back the strongest Robbie Lawler that he could be. So I'm eager to see Robbie coming back after taking some time away. He doesn't have the pressure, the target on his back anymore of being the champion, coming off now fighting a guy like Cowboy Cerrone. A fun fight, man, a fun fight. But I would say keep your eyes out for Robbie in this fight, having the rest of the time.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see not that we need a new Robbie, because the Robbie that was there before was pretty damn spectacular.
He's pretty exciting.
Kind of pretty much awesome. But yeah, I agree. I feel like taking that time away, as we know, you guys fight hurt, you guys fight tired, and all of that. And so I'm really hoping that time away, I know he's a family man and everything. I'm really hoping that time away has given him the opportunity to make some changes if he wanted to, which I believe he did do. And just really excited to see that fight. And Cowboy was doing so well. He had won 4 in a row. Then he took that fight with Masvidal because remember he wanted to fight in Denver. He won a fight in December. He's like, I want to fight in a month, and that's why we love Cowboy. But dude, that was just too many, and I felt like he had learned that lesson in the past to not fight too frequently. But it got caught up, and I know he wanted to be on that Denver card, and he just ran into the wrong guy with Masvidal. Knowing how to strike a striker like Cowboy.
Right.
And so, but by the same token, then now Cowboy will have had some rest. Obviously, not as much as Robbie, but I think we're going to see an awesome Cowboy in that fight as well. So,
I gotta agree. I mean, Cowboy has been in the last couple of years one of the most consistent fighters, if not the most consistent fighter in the UFC when it comes to fights per year, back-to-back fights. So the same thing applies to Cowboy.
Yeah,
he's having some time off now.
Right.
But the thing is, rest always is good for anybody to get some rest. But Cowboy, I feel like the reason that he likes to fight so consistently is because he's a crazy guy. He loves adrenaline, but mentally, the sooner you fight, the less nervous you get, and he kind of hides some of those nerves from people. He doesn't want people to know how much he kind of really does get to him. He's spoken about it before.
Yeah, yes. No, it's a good point.
But the more frequently you fight, the less kind of taxing it is on you on you mentally and physically. More mentally, and that's kind of why he enjoys it. So maybe some time off might give him a little bit more emotions than normal. We'll see, but a really good fight, and it's one of these fights that I could almost see a Robbie Lawler versus Rory McDonald type fight.
That epic back and forth. You think Donald? See, that's my question though. You think Donald can handle Robbie's power?
Well, I'm not sure if he could handle the power. But if I had to give one guy an advantage in either department, I would say, like as you said, I would say Robbie's more of the aggressive, press forward guy with a little more advantage in the power, and Donald would be a guy who's maybe a little more slick, maybe trying to set up more shots rather than just press forward. But that was kind of the way that Robbie and Rory was too. Rory was more the slicker, technical striker, where Robbie was more the aggressive fighter, and it made for such an epic battle. Both guys mentally are on the same level as neither one of them would ever back down, standing toe to toe. If one of them drew a line in the sand, neither of them are moving. So this makes for the making of an epic fight that we hope that we get out of it.
Yeah, I hope so too. I'm really looking forward to that one. And another one that I'm sure is of interest to you is Tarec Saffiedine taking on Rafael dos Anjos. And you had called out Rafael, and that was a fight you were really looking forward to. You wanted to introduce him to the welterweight division. He got Tarec Saffiedine, and you're okay with that, right? I mean, or no?
Yeah.
You're still mad, Ellen?
It makes sense. Tarec Saffiedine is ranked somewhere like 12 or 13.
He's number 10. Well, this week anyway, he was number 10 as of the time that we're recording this.
Right. So Tarec Saffiedine's higher ranked than anybody else that called him out.
Yeah.
Rafael dos Anjos decides he's ready to fight, so he's obviously going to go with the higher ranked guy. It's it's very interesting. Let's say, for instance, I had beaten Gunnar Nelson that night. That puts me maybe ranked 9 or 8. Would have Rafael dos Anjos have then said, okay, I'm ready to fight.
Right.
Who's the highest ranked guy? Do I want to fight Alan Jouban ranked at number 9 or Saffiedine at number 10?
Right.
It's intriguing to think what made him call out Saffiedine because don't forget, Saffiedine called him out months ago.
Right.
Months ago. So did I. I called him out before Saffiedine. Rafael dos Anjos never replied, never commented. He went back on a tweet that was 4 or 5, 6 months old or whatever it was. And replied to it. So I think that's what it was. He said, you know what, I'm ready. That fire's burning. I'm ready to fight again. This is the highest ranked guy that called me out. If I beat him, now I'm in the mix at the welterweight division again. And that's why he made his decision. So
I'm going to pull my best Kermit the Frog, that meme where he's sipping the tea. But I'm like, I'm a big RDA fan, but was RDA one of the 4 fighters that turned down Gunnar Nelson?
Ah, interesting.
I don't know. I'm just hypothesizing here. I wonder.
I don't remember hearing his name from Gunnar's mouth.
Yeah.
But he only told me 2 or 3 names, and there was like 4. But
I wonder.
Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting to know. It's interesting that he knew that he wanted to fight later on.
Yeah.
And he took that time off.
Right.
He took that time.
That's
he wanted
smart.
to be away and relax and come back when he was ready.
Yeah, no, it's smart. It's smart because he had changed camps and all that. He needs time to get comfortable with that situation. Speaking of Gunnar Nelson, have you been given another fight since then? Because obviously that was didn't go your way, but it was a solid performance and it was a very fan-friendly fight and it was a matchup that we were all excited to see. So I know that you were trying to get something for International Fight Week for yourself. Do we have any movement on that?
As of now, nothing is confirmed. I haven't heard any news on it either.
Yeah.
But after London, as I said on the last podcast, the UFC was very happy with me for stepping up, taking the fight that others didn't want, apparently, when I wanted it. And they were happy with just the process of the fight, the media build-up, the obligations that we attended to. They're very happy with me, which, it's nice to know. A loss is a loss, but, it's nice to know that your company is happy with you. So what I'm getting at is I asked to say, look, I want to jump back in International Fight Week in July. They said, you know what? Even though you're coming off of a loss, we're going to work to get you that.
Nice.
My management reached out to me 2 days ago, and they were just kind of implying, hey, when are you coming back? Let's catch up.
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking that when I get back to LA tomorrow or next week, I'm going to have some good news, hopefully, or at least a lead on something. So looking to get back and find out. I don't have any news yet, but my manager knows me very well, and he knows if I'm on vacation and he tells me, look, they offered us this guy, so-and-so.
Yeah.
I'm not in vacation mode anymore. As soon as I hear a name, my blood starts boiling. I'm thinking about fighting. I'm putting in reps. I'm looking at footage. I can't enjoy my vacation. So luckily, my manager knows me very well, and I'm hoping that if he does have a fight for me, he's doing just so and letting me enjoy my vacation. When I get back to LA, then we'll start pulling the trigger and get stuff going.
Nice. Well, keep us posted, and obviously the MMA Heat audience will know first.
This has got to be them. I'm going to have to make this announcement because UFC always wants us to wait for the UFC to announce it, and then it gets leaked, and it's such an annoying process. But that's how the UFC likes to do it. But I'm breaking the rules this time.
Break them.
I'm too big. I'm too big for this crap, Karyn.
Right.
You know what?
This is my
10th fight in the UFC. I'm breaking the damn rules for once, okay?
That's right. Hashtag sorry, not sorry. Awesome. All right, so obviously this weekend, such a killer fight in our main event. We have a rematch with Daniel Cormier and Anthony Rumble Johnson. The first time they fought was 2015. Rumble basically sent DC across the cage. And DC survived, obviously, and came back and was able to submit Anthony later on in the fight. And I don't know how this one is going to go. The last time I checked, it was even money on the odds. And they were both minus 110 or something. And, I feel like this is a fight that most people can kind of argue either way. But you can't, we've talked about this before. Like, I don't understand why DC doesn't get the love he deserves. And I guess I understand you need to beat John Jones. I get it.
Right.
But you can't look at that dude's resume and like not give him props. I don't understand that. I don't know how he'll do against Rumble. We know what he did before. But win or lose against Rumble, I think DC's got to be recognized as one of the greats.
For some reason, Karyn, I feel like in the last couple of weeks, I could write Daniel Cormier's resume out for him if he needed to.
Yeah.
My typing skills aren't that great, but I know it by head because
cool.
This has been the topic of discussion lately. What has Daniel done? Why is he not getting that credit that he rightfully deserves? And I agree. He's done so much. He deserves it. He's a bit of a heel in the light heavyweight division, and he has the one guy in the division who's pretty much known as the pound for pound
the greatest. He's great. John Jones is amazing. Come on.
The modern era current GOAT right now is John Jones, who's not fighting, and that's why people aren't giving DC the love. He's got a tough test with Rumble Johnson. But the thing about Rumble Johnson, I say this as a very big fan of Rumble Johnson. I love watching him fight. He's an amazing striker. He's an underrated wrestler. But he's kind of a guy that he's always going to bring exciting fights. He's always going to knock guys' heads off if he connects. Yeah. But he doesn't really have, I don't think, the complete identity of a champion. He's got holes in his physical game, and he's got holes in his mental game. And, again, this is not a knock on Rumble Johnson. I love him, and I would love to see him do great things. But I've just seen over time that, he has some, like when DC submitted him, it kind of looked like he somewhat gave up. He kind of said, all right, I'm getting taken down. I'm getting beat up on the ground. here's my neck. He didn't really ball up and defend that rear naked choke the first time that they fought. I've seen little glimpses of that in other fights. DC has talked about.
He
this
called him out on it. Yeah, he says he sees quit in Rumble. Right.
He says that he sees quit in him, and it's a little bit of fight talk, a little bit of hype, but all of this fight talk, it always stems from something. And DC did see something in Rumble's game, and he's just exploiting it more so, exaggerating it more so. But I have to agree with DC. There is bits and pieces of his game that Rumble seems like the type of guy that if he hits you and doesn't take your head off right away, and you keep coming back and take him down, he's kind of like, oh, well, shit. My superpower of the one-punch knockout didn't work. Maybe this is a losing battle. And I kind of see this fight playing out the same way that it did the first time, because DC took that heavy-handed punch the first time and survived it. So if he's able to survive that punch, I don't see why he would get knocked out. Anybody can be knocked out, but if he could handle that punch, he could handle it the second time, hopefully, and then pursue the same type of game plan and taking him down again.
Okay, so I hear what you're saying.
I
hear what you're saying. For the Rumble argument, though, I see. You might think he's more of a one-trick pony, but the guy can wrestle as well. But maybe the transition games are not there if what you're asking for. And I understand what you're saying. Like in the last how many fights, he hasn't only been in the second round, once in his last 4 fights or something like that. So I get what you're saying that, hey, if Rumble gets to round 3, round 4, will he know what to do because he's not used to being there? So I understand what you're saying. Maybe then he'll panic because, holy crap, what works on everybody else isn't working right now. What am I going to do? But how about the fact that he's been there with DC before and now he knows what he's up against? The motivation for somebody who lost a fight, the motivation for the one who's got a chance at redemption in a rematch, I believe is greater than the motivation of the guy who already won the fight the first time. So I feel like Rumble may be more fired up, more emboldened for this fight than maybe DC has. Rumble has not been, at least to our knowledge, as injured as Daniel has been. And so I feel like on paper, Rumble has some advantages like that in some of those intangible things. And we also, he's fought so well and hasn't had to go deep, hasn't suffered damage. For somebody as powerful as he is and dangerous as he is to be, like I said, again, what we know, way more healthy, it is also a factor. And I feel like that is something that Rumble does have going for him in this fight.
Listen, you put Rumble Johnson in there with King Kong, I'm giving Rumble Johnson a small chance. If he lands on the temple, he might knock King Kong out.
Right.
But when you talk about the motivation factor, yes, Rumble wants this. He wants the championship. He wants the belt. He wants to redeem himself from this first loss. But I feel like when I look at this fight, I think of more so the greater picture. And to me, in my mind, the greater picture, the bigger story, and the more motivational factor.
I know what you're going to say.
You know where I'm getting. DC beating Rumble, and he has to have the super fight. It has to be the Ali Frazier rematch. He has to go and fight John Jones. This is to cement his legacy. This is to shut up the haters. This is to put himself in the Hall of Fame. This is so many things for him. And I feel like I don't see him overlooking Rumble, but I feel like he's thinking Rumble is the next person in line, but my legacy awaits me, and that is the fight, the rematch against John Jones. And I feel like it has to happen. It has to happen, and this is the fight that he has to take Rumble out and DC, and then John Jones be the next fight.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree. I'm playing devil's advocate, and I'm playing all sides of this one. And I feel like part of the time, too, I have to admit, people just assume that because I work with DC and I do really like the guy so much that I can never see what his opponents can or can't do. And I that, to be fair, obviously we know what Rumble can do, but I agree with you that DC's motivation, yes, is not necessarily the rematch in and of itself. It's what it means to his legacy, and exactly, yes, positioning him for that fight with John. John supposedly should be cleared again, I guess, in July or so. And I know that's very, very motivating for DC. All that being said, though, I just don't know what's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like it could literally be the same fight that Rumble comes out, smashes him, DC survives and wears him out. Or maybe DC will surprise us. Maybe DC will get a takedown earlier. Maybe, I mean, who knows? DC can take down everybody. So I just don't know. And I feel like the motivation that Rumble could have as well, though, is the fact that everybody says he quits, is the fact that everybody's like, oh, you give up, you gave up your neck, you're this, you're that. I mean, he has a lot to prove, and he's such a chill guy when it comes to addressing, you know, his detractors and all of that. And he, go ahead, you say whatever you want to say about me, I'll show you. And I feel like there is a really something for him, because what if Rumble got in there with Jon Jones? Like, what would happen? Because Jon Jones, you know, he's been hit a few times. Gus rocked him. You know, he's been hit by some guys that showed some power to him, but not a Rumble. You know what I mean? I think Glover got some shots in, but not as much. But what will happen if Rumble gets his hand on Jon's chin? Who knows?
I like what you said about the people saying that, you know, maybe Rumble doesn't have, maybe that's motivation for him. The best thing he could do is kind of use what Tyron Woodley kind of did, where people were saying Tyron Woodley doesn't have the gas tank and this and that. Right. And he kind of used that as motivation to prove people wrong, that he has the gas tank, that he's more than just, say, an explosive early start fighter. Rumble Johnson uses that as motivation to prove that he can outlast DC mentally and physically, beat him. Look, I'm putting my money on DC, but look, as you mentioned, Rumble versus Jon Jones, that's a hell of a fight. Dude. I mean, that's an incredible fight right there, man. Yeah. That's one of those fights, like you said, like the guy that gave Jon Jones the most trouble was Alexander Gustafsson, which is a really good striker. And now we're thinking about Rumble, who maybe isn't as quite as rangy, but a guy that knocked out Gustafsson and has the power to knock out Jon Jones. That's an intriguing fight to see how Jon Jones plays that. Does he try to play the range against Rumble Johnson, or does he just go for the takedown repeatedly and try to have that dominant ground game? So either fight, anytime Jon Jones is fighting, it's intriguing. Yeah. DC or Rumble, very intriguing. Again, to me, the biggest picture in this whole story is DC and his legacy, and I feel like he is mentally strong enough to say, look, I know what the bigger picture is in this story, and I know what lies for me in the future if I can get this win. And so that's what's going to motivate him to get the win in this fight.
Oh, my God. It's going to be mental. I'm going to be working the desk at Fox on Saturday. It's me and Kenny and Eve Edwards and stuff. And so,
you working the show?
Yeah. So it's going to be crazy. Whatever happens, you know it's going to be bananas. Like, however that fight ends, even if it went to a decision somehow, you know that they're both going to be just like tore up afterwards. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it would be incredibly epic. So I'm really looking forward to that. I honestly, I just don't know who we're going to be talking to after the fight. I really, I don't know. I don't know. And I think I don't know because I've seen it before. You know what I mean? When you see that fight and you watch Rumble lay him out, you're like, oh my God, I don't know.
It's intriguing.
It really is. It really is. But I know I do just adore DC, and I know what Ann Still would mean to him. So I have to say that's the heart is pulling for him. Do you know what I mean? It makes me very nervous actually when I watch him fight. And the funny thing is, he's such a goofy, I mean that in a great way, like teddy bear, funny guy, like really social at work, really funny, really lively. And I forget sometimes what a good fighter he is. Do you know what I mean? Because I see this other guy, and then I get nervous, and then I watch him fight, and then I'm like, oh yeah, he's kind of amazing. But anyway, I don't really know my point on that, other than the fact that I'm going to be completely bugging out on
Saturday. No, he's a guy that, like you said, he flips the switch. He's a very lighthearted guy who's able to kind of laugh at himself, especially on the show, especially on UFC tonight. He's able to laugh at himself, and that's part of the job, being up there on a platform in front of people. But he's a guy, like you said, when he's inside of the octagon, he is as focused as anybody in there ever. He's a very focused individual, and if it goes to a decision, he's the kind of guy that won't quit mentally, and so he will be broken down at the very end of the fight. I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, he'll give it everything. Well, before that, and anybody who knows MMA Heat knows that our buddy Gegard Mousasi is fighting in the co-main event. He's fighting against Chris Weidman, a guy who is also a friend of the show, who's very, very just a good dude. Both these guys are, so well positioned in the division. Obviously, we know that Chris is a former champion, and he's fallen on some hard times, losing to Luke and losing to Yoel Romero. No shame in that. A lot of people have lost to those two guys. They're terrific fighters. And Gegard is really riding some momentum right now, beating Vitor, just really putting things together right now. He's got a nice string of wins, and he's just building up in the division, building. And, this is an important fight for both of these guys. Obviously, it's important for Chris to prove that he was not, that he's not out of title contention, that he's really still got a lot to offer. And for Gegard, he's a guy that came to the UFC, had been a champion in Strikeforce, but came with a lot of promise. And I feel like at the beginning of his UFC career, he maybe wasn't as motivated, maybe wasn't proving to everybody who he really is and what his capabilities are. And now he's really fired up. And, it's hard to not see Gegard winning this fight because of that positive momentum. But I don't know what you're thinking on this one.
Intriguing fight. I keep saying the word intriguing. That's the word of the podcast
word of the day.
Today. But it's like I kind of see these guys similar in general game. I give a striking advantage to Gegard in this one. Yeah. Not in the power department, but in a guy who's able to stand in the pocket, find the angles, and
put
more
together combinations.
Volume. Yeah, good combinations, good volume. He stays right out of range with something in your face all the time, making it very difficult to counter him. I see Weidman with the wrestling advantage and the power advantage in that aspect, in that area. But Gegard is a beast on the ground. He's a very good grappler. And I'm giving the advantage in the overall fight to Gegard because I feel like if he could stop Chris Weidman's forward pressure with some of his boxing and use his superior footwork in my eyes to kind of outlast him on the feet and kind of make Chris take an over-aggressive shot, a further shot away, not a well-timed shot or set-up shot, and be able to stuff those, tire Chris down, get him not relying on it or not believing in his wrestling as much. He'll be able to pick him apart on the feet, I believe. And I kind of see this fight as one of those that is kind of like a more of a momentum fight. I see Gegard having his hand raised at the end from a decision, just from him having the more volume of punches, stuffing Chris's takedowns. I could be completely wrong, but when I imagine these two fighters, and like you said, I'm a fan of Chris Weidman. We had him on the show. Yes. You've talked to him numerous times.
Great dude.
I got to interview him partly that one time on the show. Great guy. He's doing a lot of funny stuff and acting as well.
And Kevin Can Wait. Yeah, he's on this comedy show. He plays a police officer, and he's actually, in my eyes, I think he's actually doing a great job. Cool. He's got good comedic time and everything. Yeah. So I like Chris Weidman. He's coming off. He suffered 2 pretty tough losses. Yeah. I'd like to see him come back, but I'm gonna go with my man Gegard. He's got this swagger about him. He's playing the freaking PlayStation games, and he's hooting and hollering, and he's calling people out, and he's got a swagger about him. He's got a momentum about him, and stylistically, I like the edge that he has in this fight. Yeah, well, he's got that great jab, and like you're saying, if you can keep Chris away and make him have to go for like a low ankle pick and go for some shots that are not that are out of desperation, if you can keep him out of the range, because he's got that great jab. If Gegard gets you against the fence, he's obviously very good there. Yeah, ground and pound for him is very, very good as well. Like you said, though, Chris, if you see anything that Chris has been posting on social media and everything, like he's really, I know he trains at Hofstra a lot, goes in the wrestling room there and everything, and has done that for years, but he does look, a guy that it doesn't mean just because you have muscles means you're going to win the fight, but he looks pretty goddamn ready right about now. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And I know that for the fight with Luke, he didn't say anything beforehand and wasn't really, complaining about it or anything like that. But there were some issues that we found out afterwards. That he had a foot issue going on with that, and he was not happy with his weight. I believe he wanted to be bigger because Luke's a big dude. And I guess on fight night, Chris wasn't really the size that he wanted to be. I'm not exactly sure what led to him being sort of undersized in that respect or whatever. But I know that things weren't really ideal for him in that fight with Luke. And so I'm sure that's extra tough to take a loss like that when that had some issues, and Chris is a guy that doesn't want to pull out of a fight, but sometimes you have to. You know what I mean? He's had to do it at other points. So I feel like he too, with the back against the wall, this is a guy who has an interesting backstory in his personal life, has dealt with adversity, is not an easy person to break. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
So mentally, even though he's got 2 defeats, I believe Chris is still very strong-willed, strong-minded, and knows what he's up against. But it is a little funny because I spoke to both guys, and I talked to Chris when that fight was first announced, so you guys can see that interview, and also spoke to Gegard like a week and a half ago or whatever. But Chris is funny because he said, Gegard's really good. He's like, I give the guy props, but he's not great at one thing. Like, he's not really great at this. He's not really great at that. And then Gegard kind of basically said the same thing about Chris, which I thought was sort of funny.
I was going to say the same thing. And, like, if Chris could say that about Gegard can come back and, I mean, totally. You don't say Chris is a specialist striker,
right,
or an amazing guy on the ground. Yes, he's a high level wrestler,
right,
but I can see them both battling with that same
right.
thing. Maybe I would give Chris the advantage in the wrestling and Gegard the advantage in the striking,
yeah,
but neither one of them is like a specialist known for that devastating knockout power, or vice versa. So
yeah, interesting. Another advantage though, if we're doing X's and O's here, Gegard, it's his 50th fight, I believe, which is crazy because he's only 31. Bananas. But the thing about that advantage is that, there's nothing that Chris will throw. There's nothing that basically at this point Gegard hasn't seen. So you know what I mean? He's never going to be surprised by something. Obviously, Chris has a great resume as well. But you're never going to surprise Gegard. And people love to make fun of him with that demeanor. And we know him really well. And he is a funny dude. And people are getting to know his personality more. We've known that guy for 7, 8, 10 years. Like 10 years or so. We've known that funny guy for a long time, but he's letting his personality come out. Like, he's really firing on all cylinders. He's very, very confident right now. And it's hard to argue with a 31-year-old with that much experience who's totally peaking right now. It's hard to argue against that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The only argument that I would have is that Chris Weidman is the most motivated he's ever been in his entire life, suffering 2 devastating losses. These are tough losses on him. I mean, was it Luke Rockhold and then immediately after Yoel Romero?
Yeah, Yoel was at UFC 205 in Madison Square Garden. So
I mean, to lose your belt and then get knocked out in that fashion at the biggest fight card in UFC history, it doesn't surprise me that you said he looks absolutely ripped right now, because he's probably in the gym, completely motivated right now. And wants this fight more than anything, it's going to make it a intriguing fight.
Absolutely. And one other thing, we lost you there for a second, but you're back. One other thing I wanted to say about this. Now, a question for you, actually. Would you say that Chris is the toughest competition Gegard has faced in the UFC, knowing that he did fight Lyoto Machida already, another former champion? And I'm curious, I guess those would be probably the 2 you would put up there. Do you think that Chris is a tougher fight than Lyoto? Somebody you trained with.
This is a tough question, Karyn.
Yeah, I know.
I would say definitely Chris Weidman is one of the toughest and the biggest names. The other one, obviously, being Machida. I think Machida was just kind of a tough matchup for Gegard because of his style. And look, that was a very tough fight. And you listen to Lyoto after the fight, and he tells you, he's like, Mousasi is a tough guy. He was always in my face, always either applying pressure or applying that kind of invisible pressure where he stayed in range even when he was resting. Never let Lyoto, the Machida brothers are the type of guys that like to blitz and scramble when they want, and then they like to relax when they want. And when you don't let the Machida karate-style guys relax like Mousasi did, it puts a strain on them, and it makes them work extra hard to keep their proper distance. And that's what Mousasi did great against Machida. He just came up short that night. Machida was the better striker that night. Chris is the more well-rounded, dominant wrestler guy. Well-rounded all around, not quite as sharp on the feet. But I think the bigger name probably was Machida. But I think a win over Weidman, being the more current champion who has beaten Weidman, beat Machida, would do a lot for him right now, momentum-wise, and up his stock a lot.
Yeah, I was at that fight in Brazil, sitting cage side for it. It was a great fight. It was a great fight. Yeah, just curious, just curious your take on that. Well, there's a couple of other intriguing ones here. I know I'm going to let you get back to your vacation, but obviously another one in your division, Patrick Cote versus Thiago Alves. Now, Thiago Alves was always one of my favorite fighters to watch. A few years ago, he just went on a tear, and he was just wrecking people, just wrecking people. And for Cote, who I believe I'm going to try to talk to tomorrow if I can, this may be his last fight, I believe. So, he had a hard time, with Cowboy Cerrone. That fight didn't go his way. I think there were some issues. Again, so I love when the guys... It's not an excuse if it's true. But so, I think there were some things going into that fight that he wasn't necessarily 100%. But I like this fight. Patrick is a good boxer, and he's going to always come forward, and he's got that power. And Thiago Alves is, just such a great striker as well. But I think it's going to be a fun fight. I'm not exactly sure who to pick in this one necessarily, but I do think it's going to be fun.
I agree. I'm not exactly sure who to pick. The thing about both of them is Thiago Alves, Thiago Alves, not Silva. I mixed up their names. Yeah. Thiago Alves is a guy that I remember looking back years ago thinking this is the best elite striker in the division in the UFC, the scariest guy. Yeah. This day and age, I don't see that anymore. He's still a guy that has very beautiful technique, very great leg kicks. He's very fluid from his punches to his kick combos. He's one of the best guys at putting those together in a real fluid fashion. But he just doesn't have that kind of it factor anymore where he's able to knock guys out as he used to do. And I remember back in the time, Thiago fought George St. Pierre back in the day for the title. And I remember thinking, Thiago is the biggest welterweight in the division. And then he goes and cuts down to 155 pounds, which I could never make, but I'm a pretty average size welterweight. So he proved me wrong there. I don't know. He's a guy that looks humongous when he was making 170. But was able to make 155. I guess didn't love it at the 55. So Thiago's coming up from 55. Right. He's not at the peak of his career anymore. And I'm sorry, his opponent again?
Patrick Cote.
Patrick Cote. Yeah. Sorry, Patrick. Patrick Cote, a guy who's at the end of his career. He's still got the goods, but he kind of wants to retire. Like you mentioned, maybe this could be possibly his last fight. I kind of was interested in fighting Patrick at the end of last year before I fought Mike Perry. Patrick let us know that, he wanted to fight in 2017, not 16. So, all in all, I don't have a pick for this fight. I think it's two guys that are going out there and kind of either reclaim the limelight or Patrick Cote maybe getting a win and riding off into the sunset. And so for that, I'm gonna be rooting for Patrick to get the win in this fight if it is his last fight. Right.
Yeah, and it is interesting, like you said, with Thiago coming back up in weight. So maybe part of what you saw that made you think he wasn't as good as he was due to cutting too much weight. You know what I mean? So maybe we'll see him reinvigorate. And we know that Patrick fought for the title at 85. He fought Anderson Silva. So Patrick is a big 170. I don't know. Two guys I think are great, and like I said, I'm hoping to catch up with Patrick tomorrow. Lucky for him, he has a broadcast career, so if it is his last fight, he's not that worried. He calls the fights for the UFC in French and does some other stuff up in Canada. Just a real solid dude. I think like you were saying, if we get the clarification that it is going to be his last one, it's hard not to root for somebody in a swan song. The other fight you mentioned that you are psyched about is
Usman.
Kamaru Usman, and Sean Strickland.
That's an interesting fight, only because, well, these guys are in my division, but also Sean Strickland has been coming over to Black House to get a little extra help in preparation for this fight against Usman. Usman is a guy who, I think his last fight, he came off of a win of Warley Alves, the guy who I fought. Usman kind of beat him up on the feet, took him down now and then, but Usman's a guy who claims to be the best grappler in the UFC or in the welterweight division at least. He is a good specimen. He's a good athlete and he's got good wrestling resume. Yeah. But I've yet to see like a lot of amazing performances out of him. He's beaten some tough guys, but he's not a guy that like when you watch him fight, you say, "Holy crap, look out for this guy." He's just like, this is a difficult guy to fight. Right. So I'm really intrigued to see how Strickland does against him. Strickland's a guy who actually has an amazing record. He's not a really well-known guy, but his record is something like 18-1, and it was a 1 split decision. In the UFC, his one loss. And he's a big guy. He's a really big guy.
Tall.
When he was training in the Black House with me about a month ago, he had at least 20 pounds on me. I was starting to cut my weight, and he was still at his natural walk-around weight. And this is a guy that walks around. He used to fight at 185. He's walking around 200 pounds, 205, fighting at 170. I was walking around like 180 when we sparred.
Right.
He's a big guy, and I got to say, he's very well-rounded. If we fight one day, we sparred one round, and I realized, okay, this is the guy that I need to look out for because he is very well-rounded. He's a big guy. And so I'm really intrigued to see how Sean does. Like I said, he's been at Black House working with a little bit of Kenny Johnson wrestling, getting some looks from some of the grapplers like Kevin Casey over there, in case he does end up on his back. So this is another one that I think Usman, he just got bumped up into the rankings in the top 15 somewhere. I know he's trying to climb the charts, and I know Sean Strickland's trying to take Usman out. So this is one that I'm going to be watching very closely that night. Yeah,
he's an Ultimate Fighter winner, Kamaru Usman, and, he was, I don't know if I would say he's one of Rashad's prodigies, but they're very, very close, and Kamaru, I believe, was even living with Rashad for some time. And yeah, like you said, he believes himself to be the greatest grappler. He either called out Damian and or GSP, wasn't it, right? Like, he called out Damian.
Yeah, he was calling out some tough guys, man.
We were like, yo, pump the brakes, bro. Like, you don't call out Damian Maia. Like, see how well that worked out for Gunny. You know what I mean? You gotta, I understand. I love that.
That was in Brazil. That was after the Brazil fight. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I think he's very, very good. He's powerful. Like you said, he's got that great wrestling. And I don't know, he's got a lot of self-belief, which I think is a very, very good thing. But yeah, you've got hands-on knowledge about Sean Strickland, so it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out, because Kamaru has just been doing very, very well and seems to be obviously adding to his game. Since we saw him on The Ultimate Fighter, he's adding things, and getting really better. So should be a good one.
Yeah, good fight to watch.
Where are you going to watch? Because like I said, I'll be at work. I don't know what Wade's going to do. Maybe you guys could have a fight party. You can come watch it with us at the studio or something.
Come on over, Wade. Come on.
Sounds like a plan.
There you go. It's a plan. Awesome.
Put down 5 on the pay-per-view and you're welcome to come.
Yeah, nice. There you go. 6-pack of beer and a 10 spot or $5. You're good to go. Very good. Cool. Well, awesome. So I'm glad to hear that you have had such a great vacation. Like I said, we don't have UFC tonight this week, but on Friday I have a weigh-in show, and Saturday, of course, is fight night. So Saturday also, Alan, now you need to psych me up. I got my first tennis match of the season on Saturday. Hopefully it won't rain. Coach told me I'm playing line 1. I'm switching to singles now. I'm going to play more singles. And he's got me in at line 1. It's going to be a little bit of pressure. I've never played singles. I almost said professionally. Yeah. Haven't done that either. But I'm excited. But like I'm excited, but I'm also sort of just like, oh wow, I got to back it up now, because I do talk a lot of crap. Not crap, but like I have self-belief. I think I can do well, but I won't really know till I get out there. So wish me luck.
This is my advice to you, Karyn. You wake up that morning, you tell yourself as soon as you get out of bed, I'm going to kill it today.
Right.
I'm prepared. I trust in my preparation. Today's going to be my day. You go out throughout the day with that. And if you guys do a stare down, you look at her and you designate one eye. You don't look back and forth.
Right.
Oh, I lost you there. Hold on.
Okay, here we go. Yeah, we need this tutorial.
You don't look back and forth at each eye. It breaks the concentration. You find one eye, pinpoint the left eye, and you stare deep into her left eye. Pick one eye. You win the stare down.
All right, nice. I love that advice. And we do have a little bit of a stare down, because you either like spin the racket, to see who serves first, or who, you get to pick. And so, you head, so it's, what's it going to be? Right?
She's going to freak out.
Oh my God. You know that I'm going to do that, because I'm just that way. Like, it'll be amusing to me to try to mean mug somebody in a
wait, if there's a way to get a little clip of this, a picture of Karyn trying to get a little stare down action in there, please get that. We'll post it on the podcast.
Hilarious. I want to get it. I should do that. You know why, Alan? Because it's the beginning of the season. I want to get a reputation as somebody to be feared.
She's a tough, that Karyn chick. She's not an easy one. Yeah.
Great. I'm going a little Diego Sanchez. I'm going to walk out to the court with a cross. I'm gonna have a court walk. They'll be like, "What is up with this chick? She's crazy."
Walk out.
Yes.
I like it.
Yes, with my racket. The lady will be like, "Holy crap! Holy crap!"
The dream killer.
That's hilarious. She's gonna
get
forfeit.
video of it, Wade.
I'm gonna make that lady forfeit. All right. Anyway, Alan, where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, nothing's changed, guys. At Alan Jouban, AlanJoubn. Check me out.
Awesome, awesome. Well, on Twitter, I'm Karyn Bryant. YouTube, obviously, on the Karyn Bryant channel. We also have MMA Heat on YouTube, MMA Heat on Facebook. On Instagram, I'm KB Heat. And as I mentioned before, we got an interview with Gegard, interview with Chris Weidman. We have the UFC conference call with the co-main and the main event. Hopefully, I'll be catching up with Cote tomorrow as well. So, so some good stuff. So stay tuned. Safe travels home, Alan. Give the kid a little whiskey.
Absolutely.
Knock him out on the plane.
Give him a little medicine, a little rum on the spoon. Yeah. Will do.
Awesome, awesome. All right, well, we'll see you soon. We'll see you back in LA next week.
Sounds good. All right, guys. Peace.
Bye.